Today's guest on the Every Muse podcast is Hiba Siddiqui. Hiba is the incredibly inspiring founder of The 10th, a postpartum wellness retreat based at the Mandarin Oriental in London, but which also offers care to mothers who choose to recover in the comfort of their own home. The 10th program is designed to help new mothers recover, rest, and transition into motherhood during the critical early days of postpartum, providing 24/7 baby care, personalised wellness therapies, expert-led parenting education, and mental health support, all tailored to individual needs. Before redefining postpartum care with The 10th, Hiba held senior positions at Farfetch, Thread Styling, and Gucci in Milan, and she has a background in investment banking. Rather than returning to the corporate world after motherhood, Hiba decided she wanted to build something shaped by her own experience as a mother, something that she would have wanted for herself. She's clearly a woman whose talent knows no bounds, and her story is a powerful reminder that for many women, motherhood is what spurs them to step into their ambition rather than to retreat from it. Hiba, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, honestly, I realised when I was doing my research, there really is nothing like The 10th on the market. I couldn't see anything else that was offering what you're offering.
Yeah. It really was born out of my own realization that it didn't exist when I had my son here 6 years ago. Hadi. So I went into motherhood very overambitious and with a overstated sense of confidence, I think. I felt like I had done a lot of challenging things in my life. I think everyone leads you to believe that motherhood is so instinctive that you'll just know what to do. Needless to say, that was not my experience. I found the newborn baby phase to be the most difficult thing I'd ever done in my life. And when I looked outward, the support just did not exist in the London market and even in the broader Western world. So that's really what led me to create The 10th. It really was born out of my own experience and recognition of the gap that exists.
Before we talk about The 10th, I actually want to talk about you. So pre-The 10th, pre-becoming a mother, your early life, what was it? Where did you grow up? What was life like for you?
So I grew up a little bit all over. I was born in Kuwait. I'm originally Pakistani. We were in Kuwait during the Gulf War, lived in Kuwait, Pakistan, Singapore, Dubai, all before the age of 11, I want to say. Then we settled in the U.S. My family has always been very education-oriented, so that was sort of a key defining factor. I've got 3 older brothers. Every one of them is a high achiever, so the standard was set very high. My father was always incredibly encouraging and very much instilled this discipline in us of always strive for the best that you can be. And I think that's always been a defining factor for me and everything that I've done in my life so far. I think the combination of moving around when I was younger and the immigrant experience once we did settle in the U.S. has largely shaped the person that I've become. I think it's given me it's built a lot of the core skills I think one needs even in this entrepreneurial journey, which I probably didn't realize until I jumped in, how critical that early
There's a certain level
knowledge.
of fearlessness that you get from having moved, I think.
Yeah, there's
at
a
an early
fearlessness,
stage.
there's an adaptability, there's an agility there. And I don't know if it's because of that or just sort of the values that were instilled in us. I think there was also just like a sense of self-belief, like you have to just figure things out because you are moving around, you don't have your comfort around you all the time. So I think all of those sort of early life experiences were really helpful in shaping the person that I've become. Like I said, education was really important. So we were very driven by achievement, as I think a lot of immigrant families are.
True.
And so I really did go down that traditional path. I went to Dartmouth for undergrad. I always had an interest in fashion, but in true immigrant mentality, I felt like it's not serious enough.
Yeah.
So I pursued investment banking. I did it for 2 years at Morgan Stanley. And I think one of my main purposes for doing investment banking was I wanted to get an MBA, and I wanted to get an MBA at Harvard. And that was basically the goal. And so I applied, got my MBA, and I think at that point I felt like I had checked enough boxes to be considered real enough. And then
legitimately,
I've like achieved enough that people can take me seriously.
Mm.
So then I embraced fashion, and I took the plunge, and I ended up I did a few internships in fashion while I was in school, when I was getting my MBA. Found them a bit underwhelming. I felt like I had more to give. And I was coming from sort of that investment banking world where you worked all the time. So it was also it was a weird experience to suddenly clock out at 6 p.m. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this?
You feel unproductive.
This is very weird. This is feels like a half day. So I went back to school a bit confused. Like, do I really want to transition into fashion? And around that time, Gucci was recruiting for a program they used to run where they recruit senior MBAs into senior leadership roles, and you basically are assigned to one of the exec team, and you are there. You are learning from them directly. You're their right hand for 2 years, and then you get placed into an operational role.
Pretty cool.
It was really cool. It sounded like the dream scenario. And so I went and I did a few interviews. And so then they flew me to Milan for an interview. And they said, do you want to live in Milan? And of course, as anyone would say, you'd be like, yes, I would. Even though in my mind, I hadn't planned to leave the US. I was like, I'm going to live in New York for the rest of my life. And that'll be my life. So I kept saying yes. While I was in Milan, they had me meet the CEO of Gucci, who at the time was Patrizio Di Marco. And I went in, and it was just an open-ended conversation for like 2 hours. And so I didn't even know what to make of the quote-unquote interview. And so I went back. And then within like a week, they called and they said, you got the job. You're going to be working for the CEO, and you have to move to Milan in 2 weeks. And I just upped and moved.
How exciting.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was intense. It was crazy. But again, I think it just comes down to the core experience I'd had growing up. And it was that you just jump at whatever opportunity you get. And so to me, my personal considerations were never something that factored into any of my decisions. Like, I went to Dartmouth, never having visited. I was like, Dartmouth is a great school. I'm going to go to Dartmouth. And so I went to Dartmouth.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to get an MBA at Harvard. Okay, I've got to do investment banking. I don't really care what it's like. And so I did it. And then this job, they're like, we need you in Milan. So I was like, okay, I will move to Milan. And so I moved to Milan. And yeah, I did that job for 3 years. And I was the right hand to the CEO of Gucci. I did everything from the menial tasks to the XYZ isn't performing well, do something smart. And I'd be like, okay. And I would figure it out.
That's such a great sort of crash course in kind of running your own thing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. I consider it almost a second MBA in luxury fashion. And it is exactly that. Despite being very storied legacy luxury brand, I was really fortunate that the CEO that I worked for, Patrizio, ran the business with a very entrepreneurial mindset. And because I was in the office of the CEO, I got to be very entrepreneurial, but in the context of a huge storied brand.
There's a safety there too.
There was a safety to it, but I got to be quite I really got to explore this other side to me, and I loved it. And yeah, so I did that for 3 years with him. Then he moved me to Dubai, and so I helped oversee Middle East, India, and Africa for Gucci out in Dubai for 2 years or so. And then I moved to London, where I got a role with Farfetch. And the goal there was to I felt like innovation in fashion was always going to come from the outside because these brands are so storied and so set in their ways. And Farfetch at the time was the leading innovative platform in the space. And so I was very fortunate. I joined Farfetch pre-IPO, which again was just an amazing experience to see a business at that sort of cusp of, okay, it's achieved a certain level of scale, but the underpinning structure, resources, processes weren't necessarily there. So they're like, how do you think about a business like that?
Clearly, there was this like business-oriented an acumen there that you were shaping. But also, I feel like there was this kind of luxury mindset. Like you knew how to navigate luxury brands and you knew what luxe meant in the context of business. And when I look at the 10th, it feels like a very luxe but still accessible brand.
Yeah.
Now that you're telling me about what it was like at Gucci and Farfetch, it feels like that's very much something that you acquired over the course of your career.
That's very, very accurate. I think the business experience I've gotten to date has been very fixated on that luxury context. So Gucci really honed that understanding. I traveled the world with the CEO. So I saw luxury customers in Japan, in China, in the US. So getting that global understanding of the luxury customer, the luxury mindset. And then, as you said, how to build a luxury brand and what that pyramid looks like. And you're right. I've been very thoughtful about bringing that to the 10th, partially because that's been my business background, but partially because personally, I did feel when I had my son 6 years ago, part of the identity crisis was also driven by the fact that you have a child and you're suddenly funneled into a world of brands that, for the lack of a better term, don't feel that cool.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, so wait, so who am I? And it adds to the identity crisis. I felt like, okay, I'm still cool. I still want like cool things. I just happen to now be a mother.
Yeah.
And so to me, I really wanted the 10th to bridge that it should still feel like you. It should still feel like all the other brands that you love and follow on Instagram and you're drawn to, but it's for motherhood.
Yeah.
And so it was a very pointed decision to build a brand that way. And then the reality of the business model we've built. So the core product is this retreat, and it is at the Mandarin Oriental. And ultimately, it's going to have a luxury price point just because of the nature of the operating model. But again, to me, because of my business background, I'm really being thoughtful about that pyramid that we're building. So yes, the retreat is our hallmark halo product. It will always exist. But again, there is a mission behind the 10th, and it really is to bring that support that I felt very much lacking to all women to the extent that we can. So now,
which also feels luxurious. It shouldn't be a luxury, but it is.
Yeah.
Like it for some reason, it feels that, just having that is a luxury.
Exactly. So I think for us, we're trying to be thoughtful about what other products we can create that allow us to address all the different price points that exist.
Yeah.
And
give everyone a luxe experience.
Give everyone a luxe experience, but more than anything, give everyone access to support. Now, it might not be as hands-on at every price point, but at least give people structured support, women and families, that structured support that should not be a luxury. Because frankly, this whole idea that motherhood is so instinctive and, women have gone out into the fields and just like had the baby and gone back to the fields. Like you're told these stories that like shape your idea of what motherhood is and how easy it is and how natural it is. And it's not. First of all, those women in the fields come back and then they have a whole family and village of other women supporting them in that journey into motherhood.
Yeah.
In the Western world, you don't get that village.
No.
And on top of it, for every other thing in the world, the bar is so high. So you want a driver's license? Okay, go do driver's ed, go pass a written exam, pass a practical exam, and then you can drive a car.
Yeah.
But a baby, it's so natural.
Yeah,
just take it home,
Yeah.
To me, it blew my mind. And I felt, and because I think I have been every single thing I've ever set out to do I've been very methodical about how to get good at it.
Yeah.
It's always been like a part of my personality.
Something you can learn.
I need to learn, and then if I put in the time, I will get good at it. Like that is what you are told, right? And so that's why I think motherhood, that transition into motherhood, I think is particularly pronounced on the psychological side.
100%.
I mean, obviously there's postnatal depression, but I'm saying if we park that, I think for high achieving women, that transition is very difficult because you're used to being in control. You're used to knowing how to get good at something. And this, you're just kind of thrown into the deep end.
There's no control.
No control. Nobody tells you what to expect.
Yeah.
And there's no structured support out there. And so you're really left to your own devices. And I think it really, really contributes to your feeling of inadequacy, feeling there's something broken in you as a woman, because every woman is good at this. So why are you not good at this? And it really messed with my head. And I think it just made me feel really passionately like women are just sold so many lies. And then we're told to we're meant to believe that this is true. And then when it doesn't end up being true for us, we feel really bad about ourselves. Yeah. And then we're told, no, you're doing a good job. So it's this weird cycle where it's like, yeah, but you guys created this problem.
There's a lot of narrative around pushing or making a woman feel like they should want a kid or like they'll be a great mother. Yeah. You know, like even if there is kind of someone is saying, oh, I don't feel particularly maternal. Oh, but you'll feel differently about your own child. Maybe I will. Yeah. But also maybe I won't.
Yeah.
And there is no freedom to be able to express anything in a judgment-free way.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to something that everyone considers is so natural. Like, of course you should want to be a mother. Of course you will be a great mother. Of course you'll handle motherhood perfectly.
Yeah.
At every level, even before you have a child, when you have a child, after you have a child, there's like a constant narrative or a constant expectation that I think women are striving to meet. And even if they, on the outside, meet that expectation, but inside don't feel right about it, sometimes they don't feel like they can talk about it because everyone else seems to be doing fine. Or there's a stigma attached to saying, actually, I don't feel great about this. Maybe I don't feel great about being a mother. Yeah. What have I done? Like, have I made a mistake? Those are very natural things, I think, for women to feel. Not that I've had a child, but, you know, I've spoken to lots of friends, and I think that sometimes people do struggle and they don't feel able to even say, I'm struggling.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. I think there isn't room for women to express the reality of their experience. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle because nobody talks about it and nobody expresses it. Then every new woman goes into it and again feels completely blindsided by the experience. And then again doesn't feel like it's safe to say. So it just it perpetuates the cycle. And so a large part of our work has been, obviously we love to promote our product, but frankly, most of our marketing has been focused on education and trying to remove the stigma around being realistic about what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Because I think it's portrayed as it's all butterflies and flowers and it's just amazing. And ultimately,
it's more than that.
It's way more than that. But I do want to say that having my son was the single most meaningful experience of my life. And I will say that when I had him, it's like my whole life made sense. And so I would say, to address your point about motherhood, about the fear of sort of motherhood, or do I have the maternal instinct? To me, the advice I always give people around me is live out your life to the fullest. Do everything that you want to do because you have to have a level of desire. Like, you have to be willing to make the sacrifices that come with motherhood. And I feel very fortunate that those sacrifices were not forced upon me. It's not like I had pressure from my husband or from my family to have this child that I wasn't ready for. I had gotten to the point where I had felt like I had achieved a lot of my ambitions.
Yeah.
And I felt ready to sort of shift focus, because that's the other lie we're sold, that women can have it all, because you can't. You can strive to have it all. You will do a lot of things, but it will be overwhelming. And I think you just have to be realistic about what having it all looks like in different seasons of your life. And you have to be okay with that. And for me, I was okay with what that meant. And so at least I did not have the burden of feeling also resentful of the sacrifices I was making.
Yeah.
Because I very much wanted
It was a
this
conscious
child.
choice.
It was a conscious choice. I was ready for it. But it was really hard. And no one really tells you that. And the thing is, I also think like your mother doesn't really tell you, because I think also the beauty of motherhood, I think, is also you kind of forget.
Yeah.
And that's why
That's
people
what my
go
mum
back
said.
and
She's
have a
like, "I
second.
forget."
You know, they're like, oh yeah, it wasn't bad. It was fine. And so, yeah, my mother had like no recollection. So that entire period, she's like, oh, I don't remember. No, really? Is it? And that makes you feel even crazier, because then you're like, okay, so it's just me? So I think that's hard.
So true. She's like, it wasn't that bad. And then,
And the thing is, once you're out of it, you do feel that way too. Like, it wasn't that bad. Even I look back sometimes and I'm like, what was it that was so bad? Like, it doesn't seem like rationally, it doesn't seem like there was something so crazy that happened to me. But I do feel traumatized by like the first few months of the experience, because I just felt completely out of my depth and scared. I was actually scared of him. I felt like I would break him. He was so tiny and so, and to me, there's also it's oppressive how much you love this thing, and it's scary. And I think that's also, you're like pumped, your hormones are insane. You now have this thing in your life that you love more than anything that you've ever experienced. And then the fear creeps in, because then you're like, oh God, like I've never loved something this much. So now you want to protect it at all costs. But you're hormonal, you're recovering from a major, some people are recovering from major surgery. And so the whole experience is a blur and crazy and just all over the place, and no one tells you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Just a short break to say thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please do hit the follow button. It means so much to me and really makes a difference to a new podcast like this one. Also, I would love if you could leave a rating and a review. When you're creating in a vacuum, it's not always apparent whether the episodes are resonating or not, and that's why your feedback is so important to me. It means that I can actually put out episodes that you want and will enjoy. Thanks so much. Back to the episode. Describe to me the experience that a woman that checks in to the 10th program. What can they expect from beginning to end?
So if you check in at the hotel, you arrive, you don't need to think about anything, because we have everything taken care of. So
I want that now without a child.
So we didn't want it to feel like it shouldn't feel like a burden to have to then pack for this thing, and then you don't know what you might need. And so we really tried to take the thinking out of it as much as possible. You check in, we have all the baby care paraphernalia, we have everything you're going to need. You're greeted by our client manager downstairs in the lobby as soon as you arrive. You're escorted upstairs. We check you in. You have a session with our midwife, who you sort of walk through your birth experience with. And so you talk through anything that may have come up in labor, anything that's come up in the hospital. And so you really download to her the full experience. You go over your schedule of treatments and care for your stay. And then the program begins. And the program is a combination of every meal is postpartum nutrition specific. So you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. Everything is focused on your nutrition, on lactation, if you're breastfeeding. And you don't need to think about what you're eating at all. Because the other shocking thing is that at the hospital, even if you get a private birth, none of the food is appropriate for the postpartum period. So nothing that is on the menu is what you should be eating once you've just had a baby, once you just had an epidural. So it's all quite shocking. Then you have a series of treatments, and they can range from clinical care. So you've got the midwife who comes in and does the baby and mother checks, lactation consultations. So you get the support you need if you are breastfeeding. Various holistic body work treatments ranging from lymphatic drainage massage, belly binding, reflexology, all the different things that, again, help you rebuild from within. And then we have a lot of the emotional and mental support in that the doulas do various grounding sessions with you, again, talk through your birth trauma, any birth trauma that might be there. And we have a mental health specialist who's a licensed psychotherapist. And one mental health check-in is a standard part of our experience because we want every mother to have the opportunity to at least get it out. Because I think when you're in the whirlwind of those early days, it's really difficult to make the time for something like that. And then any of our treatments you can add on additional sessions. So our standard program is an all-inclusive program that we believe includes the full scope of everything you need to recover and rest in those first early days. But you can then add on sessions during your time there or then continue the support at home. And then we have trained maternity nurses on staff who look after the baby as much or as little as you want. So if you want to be completely hands-on, you do not have to opt into that. But if you want the rest, they are on hand to support you throughout that experience. And then midwives and maternity nurses provide the practical education to both parents on how to care for the baby. Because the other thing, again, stemming from my own personal experience, was I took a prenatal class. It was great in giving you a broad sense of what to expect. But the realities of caring for your specific baby are just completely different. And so to me, I did feel like I was an intern in the experience for the first few weeks because I didn't feel confident enough in my own ability to do these things. So that's why the practical baby care education to me was really important in this experience because we want every mother, every parent to leave feeling like they have the confidence to care for this baby. Like, you know what you're doing. And then get whatever help support you want. Because then, okay, you have a maternity nurse, she's helping you, great. But you know in your heart that you are capable of being the mother. So you can step into that role. So that's why it was really important to me that that's part of the experience that we build.
I've heard you talk about how the experience at the 10th is shaped by kind of the postpartum treatment that exists for women in Eastern cultures. I've heard you talk about it. Is that the inspiration behind the 10th?
Yeah, that is part of it. It is very much that in Western culture, you can feel while you're pregnant, everyone fawns over you. You'll be in an elevator. And I do think pregnancy and childbirth are like the great unifier in that a person on the street in the elevator will be like, oh, how far along are you? Or we just had a baby last year. And everyone's asking how you're doing, like strangers. How are you feeling? How are things? Then you push the baby out and genuinely all of the focus falls away. Nobody looks at you as the mother anymore. All focus shifts to the baby, which is not a bad thing. Obviously, the baby should get a lot of focus, love, and care. But it's as though the mother ceases to exist. And the only time anyone checks in with the mother is things like, are you eating enough? Because your milk flow is dropping and we need to make sure the baby's getting enough food. And so there's no focus on the mother, her recovery, her upskilling, her support. And in Eastern cultures and in most traditional cultures is what I've come to learn, women are looked after by their communities for the first 40 days. That is a core part of the transition into motherhood. And it's so true. Like, I had always heard growing up that in South Asian cultures, the woman goes to her mother's house and then her husband comes and visits.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember feeling like, oh, that's so weird, or like, why would that be? And I do think it's at odds with the Western experience in a lot of ways, because the Western experience is very focused on the nuclear family and mother and father in it together, father trading off night duty with the mother. And so it doesn't really work in the Western context. But after I had my son, it made so much sense because my husband was incredibly well-meaning. My husband was incredibly motivated, but ultimately he just could not be there for me in the way that I needed. I needed my mother. Luckily, my mother was there, but there isn't as much of a role for the man to play in that period because the baby needs the mother for everything at that point. And emotionally, he couldn't really understand what he needed to do for me because I was so vastly different than how I normally am.
Yeah.
And I think it's really overwhelming for the man in the process too. They've also been through a major life change. They are now responsible for this little human. They are kind of outside of the experience. And they've also been told, okay, you're going to become a father and fatherhood means something, and they don't have a role to play in the beginning.
Yeah, it's almost harder.
It's harder because they're on the sidelines,
yeah.
but they want to be useful.
Actually, sorry, it's not almost harder. It's just different.
It's different. But they're also largely ignored. So it's not like
Yes.
there's any focus on them, right? And so that's the other piece to our experience. We very much include partners in our experience because we do want to adapt it to the reality of the way the Western world operates. And it is very much a nuclear family. But let's actually equip that husband with the tools and the knowledge and give him the space to process his own feelings so that he can be that partner. How is he expected to know what to do? Because first of all, the woman herself isn't even told what motherhood is like. And then you've got this partner on the side who's even less aware of what motherhood is like.
Yeah.
And then we're all expected to thrive in this process and care for a human life. And so yeah, but looking back, it made so much more sense to me. I was like, okay, going to your mother's house and being looked after for 40 days and like your husband dipping in and out and all the women really easing a woman into motherhood made so much sense. And so it definitely was the inspiration behind what we've done at the 10th. And also, my best friend from university was Korean or is Korean. And she had a baby around a similar time. And so she's the one who also put me on to the fact that this idea of a place you go to once you've given birth is how women give birth in Korea. 8 in 10 women check into these types of centers when they give birth. That is how.
Really?
Yeah, that is how they give birth. So I'm like, the fact that that doesn't exist in the Western world just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so that's where it came from. And then as we've been operating, we've been having a lot of requests for at-home support as well. And so the at-home program has naturally grown out of demand for it. And so what we've done is take that experience that we've become known for at the hotel, which is grounded in what we call the 10th method, which is our approach to that physical, emotional, and mental recovery postpartum. So really going through the 3 different elements to create that holistic program of care. And so we've packaged that up in a 7-day at-home experience that's delivered to your door. And again, the goal there is to take the thinking out of it. Because frankly, you just don't have the luxury of time once you've had a baby to be researching what treatments should I be doing.
Yeah.
And then I remember I had some awareness, a little bit of what I should do because of my culture and research I had done. But finding practitioners to do those things was also very difficult. And then people were not vetted. I didn't know. I found some woman on Instagram that did belly binding, and I invited her into my home. I had no clue. I didn't DBS check her or anything. I just needed it, so I got her. So we just wanted to take all the thinking out of it. So don't worry about what you think you'll need. We've thought about it. The program is everything you need to truly recover over those 7 days. We have the best-in-class practitioners, fully vetted. They've been utilized beyond belief so that we are very comfortable with the service levels they deliver, and everything is just delivered to your house. You don't need to worry. And so
I was just thinking, if I just knowing that was waiting for me after giving birth is almost like it takes away half of the kind of, oh, what's it going to be like when I get home? How am I going to manage? It's like this, not to compare it to prison, but like a halfway house, you know, like it's almost like interim period where I can still figure it out. It's not going to be instant.
Yes. That's so funny because I did, when we were like thinking through it all, halfway house was exactly in my mind, but obviously couldn't use it for obvious reasons.
Well, I just said it.
But it's exactly that, because some people want the care in their home, as in they don't want to leave their home, they're comfortable, they have the space, they just want to be in their own cocoon.
Yeah.
While others are exactly as you've described, that you kind of want to have a third place you can go to before you go back to your real life that gives you a bit of that, okay, I'm going to ease into this. I'm going to have a support system around me so I can find my feet before being thrust into the rest of my life. Because for me, I can still distinctly recall the terror that I felt when I walked through the door to my house with the bassinet and the baby and just being like that's it. Like, now this is the rest of my life. And you go from hospital where you get, and I had a private delivery. I was fortunate enough, and they look after your baby, and then you're out of the baby, and now you're like going home, and then you walk in your front door, and that's it. And there's so much anticipation because for 9 months you've been carrying this baby, and then suddenly he's there, and that's it. You're like, that's it? Now I have to take care of him. And so, to me, it was that if I could have gone to some third place and been like, okay, this is going to be like a trial run. I'm going to figure it out, and then I'll be thrust into it. I personally, like you, would have felt much calmer about the whole thing. But again, I also went into it. To be fair, my period of anticipation was not that bad because I thought it wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, it's almost a blessing. Like,
it was
knowing.
Almost a blessing. So I didn't know until I was in it. And that's funny because we do get a lot of opportunistic bookings, which is people are in it and then they're like, okay, wait, can I come in tomorrow? I didn't think I would need this, but actually, can I come in tomorrow? And the other big learning for us has been, again, obviously the price point is high, and that's a factor of, like I said, the business model. And going into it, I thought that the retreat would only really appeal to a very narrow cross-section of women because of the price point. But again, we've had all types of deliveries. So we've had a lot of NHS births where women would rather save their budget to come and get this kind of support and care rather than go for a private delivery, because a lot of times private delivery, you get a lot of peace of mind from knowing that it's a doctor-led delivery. But beyond that, there isn't much care. And so people like to save that budget and actually come to the retreat. So I think that's the greatest testament to the fact that this category of care just needs to exist. And it's not a luxury. It actually is that this is how women should be supported.
100%.
It's unfortunate that they're not supported this way. And we really want to be leading the charge in devising ways to support women like this, like I said, at all price points, whether that's through the retreat, whether that's through at-home programs, whether that's through one-off treatments, or whether through digital programs that we're working on developing as well. So we don't want any mother to feel alone in this period, because I think that's the biggest challenge, is that you are left alone to your own devices, and you then you start to spiral because you start to believe that it's just you. You're the only person that feels this way. And I think that just, again, further puts you into this negative place.
I think a lot of women can put their own self-care at the bottom of the list.
It's exactly that. I think it is often seen as an indulgence for women to care for themselves, but actually the outcomes are so much better
Yeah.
when women do take the time to care for themselves. And like I said, motherhood was the most beautiful experience of my life. And we want women to get to experience the beauty of that fully instead of drowning in the lack of support around it.
How would you say you've changed, Hiba, since pre-becoming a mother, Hiba, versus now? Like, how have your priorities changed and shifted?
I think you get a quiet confidence about yourself, or at least I developed a quiet confidence after having a child. I stopped seeking external validation as much. I stopped seeking external measures of achievement as much. I started craving a more meaningful life. And I also developed the inner sense of confidence and sort of faith in things working the way that they should. And I think all of those things are what gave me the push I needed to actually jump in and do this. So I gave birth 6 years ago, but we only launched we launched earlier this year. So in February, I did go back to my fashion job for a little while, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this needed to exist. I felt very passionately about.
Did it feel different going back to fashion after becoming a mother?
I think it did, but I think it took long. Basically, I think what happened was I needed to feel like, as a working mother, that is time away from your child. And I needed to feel that what I was doing was valuable enough to merit being away from my child. So I think that festered. So I think that feeling festered. And I think next to that, I also felt very passionately that this was another way in which women were misled by society.
Yeah.
I feel like women are fed a lot of different lies throughout their lives. And one of them was that motherhood is just instinctive and easy and you'll do well and, you just get on with it. And I really did want to address that. And then I think once I'd seen the gap, I couldn't unsee it. So it just it stayed with me. And like I said, that festering feeling of what I was doing needing to matter built as well. And deep inside, I'd always had a desire to build something of my own. I think there was a lot of risk aversion, and I think that I just kept collecting credentials to kind of be like, okay, the more credentials I collect, the safer it'll somehow be when I actually start doing this. And at some point it became, okay, enough credentials, you just need to jump in. And I do think becoming a mother just gave me the confidence that I needed to do it.
The ultimate credential.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I just felt I was confident in doing it. And I do think that I've developed an inner strength and an inner peace since becoming a mother that allows me to go with the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, like in a way that I just wouldn't have been able to do 10 years ago. 10 years ago, every single up and down would have sent me into a spiral. Now it's just much more even-keeled and you just keep going with it. And I just have a self-belief that if this is meant to work out, it will. And we're just going to keep doing our best and keep pushing. And if it's meant to exist, it will be successful. And we just keep doing it. And like I said, obviously, like the credentials, I joke about credentials, but I think where credentials are helpful is it builds your skill set, right? So I do feel like we have the skill in the business now to pivot as we need to be adaptable, to be creative, to sort of every twist and turn, we're able to come back stronger. And so, yeah.
I really see the entire journey. For you, I see it from like building the credentials and like knowing that this is what you want to do and doing it, to actually, rather than it being a cerebral thing, it being quite a lot more heart-led.
Yeah. It's funny that comes through because it's exactly that. It is very personal. It is something I feel in my bones. Building something from nothing, especially in what we're doing, which is creating a category, it is an uphill battle and you have to feel it. And if you don't, you'll never be able to do it because it's just
too hard.
Too hard.
Yeah. Last year you launched the 10th.
Yeah.
When did you have the idea for it? Or has it always been percolating?
So it's been percolating since I had Hadi 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the concept started to emerge a bit in the US last year, about 18 months ago. And every major US publication started talking about the concept of these postpartum centers, places to stay. And so it definitely started to feel like the conversation and the narrative was shifting. The UK still had nothing, but it did start to feel like the moment is now. I also think there were other factors at play, like women are increasingly giving birth later in life, so there's higher disposable income, so they can spend on their care. And I just think the general nature of self-care has really shifted. So it's no longer seen as indulgent to be taking the time and space for yourself, whether that's a yoga retreat or whether that's a wellness clinic. And so it felt like there were different, sort of the winds were shifting. And so it felt like it was very much time to do it. If we were going to do it, I needed to do it now. So I made the decision. So we incorporated last May. But it was still and by incorporated, I mean we just launched social. So we launched social, and I think a lot of people told me that why would you start investing in like content before you even have anything? You know, like first you should create the product. But again, I was coming at it from that brand building mindset, and I was like, and also to me a big challenge was actually creating the need, right? And I think people needed to be educated. So we started investing in content early. And by investing, I just mean that we were creating organic content on social. A lot of education and sort of awareness around what postpartum is like and towing the line between educating and not fear-mongering, because we also don't want to make an entire generation of women scared of giving birth. But how do you create a realistic view while still encouraging people to have children, right? So we did that. And then I started kicking off conversations with hotels early this year. And we were very fortunate. We locked in a partnership with the Mandarin quite quickly. And again, there were two ways to do it, right? I think there was a world where you first build your customer pipeline and then you open. But for me, it was very chicken and egg in that if it doesn't exist, people are not going to sign up. It's a totally foreign concept. So we just have to take a bet and just start. And so we opened our doors in February and we started taking bookings. And yeah, it's been amazing to see the response. It's been amazing to watch firsthand the impact you make on a woman who's just entered motherhood, who walks in the doors and you see her visibly overwhelmed. It's like she's in it. And then they leave just like singing the praises of the staff. They want to maintain relationships with our lead midwife, with our lead lactation consultant, and they request follow-on treatments. And so it's a real testament to it working, that it needs to exist. And so, yeah, so that's how it came about. And we jumped in and just did it. And we've been very fortunate. We've managed to build an amazing team. I mean, the 10th would be nothing without the quality of the practitioners that we've managed to recruit. I was also very lucky early on. I got a lot of support from Dr. Claire Mellon, who's one of the leading obstetricians at the Portland. And so she's been really valuable in helping shape sort of what the program should entail. And we've just had really strong inroads with a lot of the obstetrician network across London, which was really important to us because, again, as a new mother, you don't know what you're going to need. And so when an obstetrician tells you that actually this is something that's worth investing in, they get that quiet sort of comfort from, okay, fine. So this is not just something random. So that we've been really fortunate by the response we've gotten from practitioners, from obstetricians, and then, of course, most importantly, from mothers.
Is the plan, and it might be too early to say, but is the plan to have more kind of 10th programs in different places and potentially your own sort of wellness clinic one day, just like standalone?
I mean, the ambition really is to be the go-to platform for maternal wellness globally. I don't think there's any one go-to place that exists for mothers once they transition into motherhood. So, of course, postpartum is very much central to that. But then I think it's even just more broadly maternal wellness as a whole just is largely ignored. And so for us, it is about innovating and coming up with different types of programs that cater to different women's needs. Like I mentioned, we've got retreat. We're leaning into at home more now. We've got a product called 10th Circles, which we're doing an MVP of later this year, which is it's like curated WhatsApp communities. It's going to be groups of 10 mothers, so it's very intimate. It's going to be curated, quote unquote, in the sense that you're going to be with 9 other mothers that are very much like you, that can really be your tribe, that are grappling with similar types of issues that you are. So, because for me, I was in a few different mom chats, but I didn't feel like we were on the same wavelength in terms of what I was worrying about, what they were worrying about. And so I wanted it to be actually groups of women that you would truly connect with. And it's meant to be the meeting point between, obviously moms are in a lot of mom chats, but those can often be the blind leading the blind. Or you can be in like a midwife chat where you can text a midwife whenever you want.
I love that.
Yeah, so that exists. But what we want is to be at the center of both, where you have the community of other mothers, but you also have access not only to a midwife, but to the full multidisciplinary team that the 10th comprises. So you can have a pelvic floor specialist in the chat. You can have a sleep specialist in the chat. You can have a psychotherapist in the chat. And so you get access to all these different types of specialists. And then, of course, you can book any follow-on treatments through the chat because we have the network that you would want to book in with. So that's one of our steps toward trying to bring this care to more people.
So personalized.
So that it's personalized, so no woman's kind of just on her own, sitting in her house, feeling overwhelmed, but you actually have tools at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And so those are some of our early products, but yes. And then I think global expansion is always something that has been on my plans. I think the Middle East makes a lot of sense for us just because we get a lot of clients from the Middle East. There is that birth tourism that still happens where women do come to London to give birth. And I think a lot of our care and what we're doing really does translate to that market as well. So we're also looking at that. But the goal really is to be ambitious with what we're doing, and it's meant to be the go-to place for maternal wellness and whatever that may mean at whatever stage you might be, but really cater to women throughout this process once they become mothers.
Can you tell me, what does 10th wellness, where did it come from? Why that name?
So it's a play on the 10th month. So everyone focuses on the 9 months of pregnancy,
clever.
But 10th month is always ignored. Obviously, the 4th trimester is another play on it. But to me, the 10th really resonated because I just think everyone really times their life by that 9th month. But ultimately, that first month should very much be considered part of the experience because that first month was where I found it to be the most challenging. So personally, the 10th month was very significant for me. So it's born out of the 10th month.
I came across, while I was kind of looking into motherhood-related stuff, the word matrescence.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I think and it was almost like adolescence. Like it's this period of your life where you are revolving through a period of motherhood. And I just thought that word doesn't get used enough.
It's so
random,
true.
But beautiful.
No, but it is beautiful. And I think that's what often gets lost when even when I talk about the 10th, I think the focus becomes so much on the support you need and all the support that's missing and how difficult recovery is. And I do think that ultimately the mission here is that it is exactly that. It is a period of becoming, and women should be given the support to become. Because you were never told that before, I feel like you're almost trying to grasp who you used to be. But actually, the beauty of this process is you become a new version of you. And for me personally, I love the new version of me much more than the old version of me. I'm so much calmer, so much steadier, so much more self-assured. And I just don't think that's like talked about enough, that motherhood actually, for me personally, in my experience, it completed me. It really did make me feel like everything made sense finally. Like I felt like I was one of those people throughout my life who just had so much love and emotion to give. And then I had this child and I'm like, okay, like this is where it was all supposed to go. And yeah, it's just been like a feeling of completeness.
Gosh.
And I just think we don't focus on that enough. And I think that's the problem, that I think it's about getting the right balance between being realistic about what motherhood looks like, but also acknowledging the beauty of what that is. And our mission and goal really is to give women the space and the support to rise to that in the best way that they can.
I love that. That was beautifully said.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Hiba.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great to talk about, because I do think these are the things that when you're in the throes of building a business, you don't actually get the time anymore to take a step back and remember why you embarked on this. And so it's been a great trip down memory lane, even for myself. So it's been really great.
Good. When you were talking about becoming, I reflected on the fact that we've just reflected on your becoming.
Yeah.
And it was quite beautiful. I loved like seeing, well, obviously I wasn't there for all of it, but like learning about the evolution of you.
Yeah, honestly, it's even felt emotional for me to go through it all, because I haven't reflected on it as completely as I did today here. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please do hit the follow button and leave a rating and review. It makes such a difference, and it personally just means so much to me. Thank you.